I'm Seth Cruz, and my wife Jandy, she started a Facebook group, and we pass these around, but you may or may not have them if you want to grab it. That's what it's for, is to get you access to our Facebook group. Really, the idea behind that was just that sometimes somebody's truck gets broken into, or we see somebody playing basketball at 3 a.m. in their driveway. A lot of us have cameras or something, and we post about it. And it's just like a neighborhood watch. So it's just a good, hey, I'm missing a package. That's a good place to post those kinds of things. So I want to make sure if you need it, it's there. If you're already on there, but your neighbor isn't, share it with them. We want everybody in the group if we can.
And I will say that some people don't answer the questions, and when I go back to their profiles, it says that they are currently living in like Texas and stuff. So if you know that this person actually lives in the neighborhood, just drop me a message and I'll add them and stuff.
So first of all, I'm going to send this out or post it on the Facebook group and slide deck. So if people want to see the slides and it's hard to read, don't worry, you'll get access to that. The same with the covenants. I printed out a few copies, but if you don't have the covenants and would like them, I was going to post those as well so that they would be available.
They're on the Combs website.
They are on the McCombs website as well. We'll talk about that because we want to move away from them. And Josh is over here recording everything so we can put it on YouTube, because we realize that there are people whose schedules disallow them to be here today. So that's what we're doing, why we have the camera set up over there. So basically from an agenda perspective, we'll talk about the areas of focus that I have for 2023. And then I wanted to give a quick update on Hidden Hills over there, because I found their covenants, and it looks like they took our covenants and copied them, but they did make some changes. Not many, but some. So just to be aware. So welcome. New neighbors, there's still a lot of construction that's gone on, a lot of people moving in, so welcome. If you haven't, if we don't know each other yet, we will soon, I'm sure. And if we have seen you last year, it's good to see faces again. It really is. And I mentioned I did make copies of the covenants, but I only made 5 because I really wasn't sure how many to make. But electronically is a lot better for most people anyway, so I'll make that available. The areas of focus that I wanted to basically go over was an income and budget. And there's not a lot that we're spending money on, so you're wondering where's my dues go, and we'll explain that. And we would like to transition away from McCombs. And I'll explain why, and I want to make sure everybody feels the same way. I want to talk about mowing, because that's been probably the most common item that people notice when they drive in, is if it's not mowed, or there's an empty lot next to them that's not maintained. That's something that bothers most people the most. Of all the things that happen in the neighborhood, so we'll talk about that. I also wanted to talk briefly about the commons areas, because we actually have multiple commons areas that ultimately the homeowners association would be responsible for. It's just there's not a lot of maintenance that's required beyond mowing right now. And then lastly, we'll talk about basically we have covenants, but we probably need to make a few adjustments. And if we're going to do that, I want to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page as far as what those would be.
How many people do you need to have a quorum?
How many people do we need for a quorum? Three.
Three homeowners?
Three, well, right, I believe it says three. Do you know off the top of your head, John? Because John's on the board. We actually are short one board member.
We only have 2 board members.
I think to answer his question, you have to have a vote of 57% to change the bylaws or anything else.
So Mike said 57%.
That was kind of where I was getting at.
57% have to vote to change the
You
bylaws.
can abandon this whole thing for 57%.
57%.
Okay, there you go.
And how many is 57%?
I haven't added up the numbers.
How many homes do we have?
I believe there were 63 homes and then 27 townhomes, which are all part of the entire homeowners. So it's under 100, but it's close to that total number. If we look at everybody between the areas. And the other thing I will say is Casey's and the apartments are in our association. Not every person in the apartments, it's the owners of the apartments, right? Which I think is the idea.
And the developer still has an interest because every lot that isn't sold yet.
Is still owned by the developers. Correct. And so they actually have,
He has more votes.
Right.
Because he's the developer.
Who's the developer?
Lewis, right, what is it? Strauss. So, from a budgeting perspective, and I'll read this since it's so tiny, was that basically from HOA dues, we collected $5,780 this year. And up until, I think it was June, when we really pushed, and then I think we had to push again in September. Anyway, McCombs was charging $500 a month for their management fee. Now take 500 times 12, and we pull in $5,700. That's a problem.
What were they doing for that?
Exactly. So they were supposed to do all the communication, they were supposed to be taking meeting minutes, they were supposed to be
The dues collection.
calling and enforcing, like builders keep being done within 12 months.
Keeping their lot anywhere where somebody's building, there's provisions within the covenants that they have to maintain the lot. We all know that wasn't happening in some of the cases.
So basically, McCombs was supposed to be helping manage the HOA. For $500 a month, it just really, we got it down to $380, but they wouldn't go down any more than that. And at $380, that's still 80% or some tremendous amount of what we're bringing in. And we have to think about the mowing and of the commons areas. Snow removal really should be done in the winter.
On the income statement there,
Yes.
whatever, why don't you just name off the expenses that we have, so people have a good idea. There's insurance that we have, there's tax preparation.
So, right, the tax prep fees, they just lumped it all into one. I'm gonna have to pull the one from last year and send that out with everything, so everybody can see it. But the mowing of the commons areas, they were supposed to pay the company, same company that does the townhomes, and that never happened to my knowledge. They never paid out of.
Look,
How, if we have negative income, who's been doing all of this?
we don't at this point.
We don't have a negative income, we're getting ahead of it before that happens.
Okay, all right. The reason I ask is
Yeah.
I've been on the board of 2 different HOAs.
Okay.
One held by the management company, and one held by the homeowners. Okay?
Okay.
I've had probably 10 years as an HOA member, as an HOA board director.
Okay.
And I'm looking around and I'm going, $150, what am I paying for?
Right.
And I had no idea there were that many common areas to be mowed and all of that. But there are pros and cons to both.
Yes.
There are, as a homeowner, as an HOA that's owned by the homeowners, there is a considerable amount of work and a considerable amount of expense, because you will have legal fees, you will have enforcement fees, and you will have maintenance fees.
So I want to talk a little bit about the enforcement,
Okay?
because there is no enforcement mechanism within the covenants today
Okay.
for us.
Okay.
That's right.
But then, and I've been with a group that would have, with the management company. It was, the homeowners owned it,
Yeah.
but we contracted with the management company, because let's face it, it's a heck of a lot easier for the management company to go to you and say, hey, your house doesn't meet covenants,
Right.
and you haven't paid your dues or whatever.
Sure.
Than it is for a homeowner to go to somebody and say, hey, you're not.
Yes.
I mean, so there's pros and cons to both. What's our percentage of delinquency? Do we have delinquent members that have not paid their dues?
It was
We
like
don't-
1%.
Yeah, we don't have anyone that's not paid.
Once they know, once they know, the only thing that might be delinquent was if the management company had assessed a late fee.
Okay,
But everybody's paid their dues. We haven't had that to
because
continue.
we had a considerable amount of that, and it is, as a homeowner, it's difficult to collect those.
Yeah,
And you have very little, and you get leverage. It's,
We had some delinquency last year, but
So that
people
was,
got caught up.
well,
and taken care
that
of.
was actually something that they were supposed to do was, send letters and file liens and do all these things to make sure people were paying their homeowners fees. Until John and I got on them about even just communicating, they weren't even doing that. So they weren't even reminding people that they needed to pay their dues.
I know that I was pretty upset because we got an email on, when were dues due?
January 1st. But
We
didn't
got
get
an
the
email
until after that.
on the last day of the month that they were past due the next day.
Okay, so that's another thing on my list here.
And they
Because,
had no choice other than to pay their credit card fee, because how else were you gonna pay it? And it was due the next day.
We had issues with that. Now, back to your original question, or I might have heard it from a couple of people. What are we getting for that?
what are we getting for 150 a year?
One big point that everyone needs to keep in mind right now is the common areas that Seth referred to don't belong to the HOA.
They haven't been deeded over.
They haven't been deeded over, so, right, I was gonna,
So, just
yeah,
real general, and then we can get into it in more detail, but right now, Lewis, Mose, is okay, the common areas, what are the common areas? Those detention cells that are over in the townhome area, those are going, they're our common area, they don't belong here yet.
so
Around
there's
the
the,
mailbox.
right, around the mailboxes, behind where all the big power lines are and the trees,
Okay.
that's all considered commons area.
So technically, the HOA is not responsible for maintaining those areas, but we all saw what resulted because the developer wasn't doing it either, except a couple of times.
And there is in Nebraska law, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm gonna not probably present this exactly accurately, but it's my understanding that if property like the are actually identified as commons, one, they're not gonna be taxed, right? And two, as even if they're not deeded to the homeowner association. If the homeowner association is maintaining those lots, they preserve their rights to those areas. So the deeding of the property probably matters more when the Army Corps of Engineers comes along and says you need to fix this property. But as an example, there's a public sidewalk that leads up to the mailboxes from the apartments. That's technically commons area for Shadow Creek Association. Well, I noticed when it snowed that whoever is handling shoveling and things, snow removal for the apartments, stopped where they felt they should end snow removal. Now, those specific set of comments, the ones that are between these houses and the apartments, those are considered Shadow Creek Commons as well.
That's been deeded over to the apartment.
And it was deeded to the apartment by Lewis.
So that treed area in between is not, it's a commons area, but it's not the responsibility of the HOA. The apartment, the owner of the apartments owns that. But one thing we have to keep in mind going forward is once that commons area gets deeded over to the HOA, probably will happen this summer.
Well, that's one of the things
It's
that,
supposed to happen. We are gonna have that expense going forward. That's not gonna be cheap to maintain.
and I have a section on mowing, because we wanted to talk about kind of what.
We took it
what it's
upon
costing.
ourselves to mow that area around the mailboxes and that sidewalk and stuff, even though it wasn't ours, just for the simple fact that it was.
It looked better and preserved our rights to the commons as a homeowners association, mostly because they weren't deeded over appropriately, and we don't want to lose the rights to those areas, especially one by the mailboxes coming in and areas like that. Now, we'll have to decide if we want to keep doing that or not, but that was. Sure. Well, so McCombs was, they never paid the lawn company for the mowing. So it probably between what they said we owed them in management fees and what the lawn company was billing for, it would have either brought us down right to zero, or we could have even ended up in a negative position, but we never arrived there. They failed to present an annual budget. They didn't really do anything as far as, we asked them twice, I think, John, to schedule an annual meeting, and it never happened. Yes, I know we had to push pause, but that was because, in part, their employee got sick, who was going to put the budget together, who was going to be there to present everything.
That was at the last minute.
Yes, it was, and it was at the last minute. So we're just frustrated with the lack of, for how much we're paying. If, we say $500 a month, and we're pulling in $5,000 a year, it just doesn't add up. So if we had 300 houses in our association, and it's $500 a month, maybe it would make sense. But when we have less than 100 total houses, that was the challenge. Because it just didn't make sense for how much we were paying, and then after their employee left, we weren't getting even, I would argue, $300 worth of service out of it. Yes.
My question is Casey part of our association? Are they paying any fees to us?
Okay, so
And the apartment complex? Are they?
so the question was.
What are those dollar amounts?
So the question was, is Casey's paying in, and are the apartments paying in?
Correct.
Casey's is supposed to be, said once they turned on their lights and opened their doors, they were supposed to pay a prorated amount through the end of the year. Now, I'll be very open with you. I don't know the exact amount because that was supposed to be McCombs' job to look at the budget, which they were supposed to formulate, and come up with 15% of the budget would be Casey's responsibility. Now, if somebody's good at doing math, the 15% of 6,000 is what they would owe us. $900. And that is roughly what the apartments have paid last year. Okay?
So then when the daycare, they will be responsible for fees also, right?
Any commercial building is responsible for 15%. So would it be Casey's 15%, the daycare 15%? No. If there's 2 or 3 businesses, they would share that 15%. Now how that gets calculated and billed, well, unfortunately, if we take it on ourselves, we've got to figure that out. It was McCombs that was supposed to figure that out, and they weren't. And so I'm very recognizing that this isn't perfect, but I wanted to communicate to everybody where we sat, because part of our challenge had been we would have a meeting and it wasn't getting communicated well, and we weren't getting attendance that we would have hoped for. And so we're really trying, we don't want this to be a surprise to people. And so I didn't do a great job, but I got a lot of people here today, and thanks to Mike for communicating. We're really just trying to get involvement of everybody in the neighborhood, and communicate kind of where we're headed. But that was our challenges last year with McCombs and why we're thinking we should transition away.
But we have to have the people step forward to do it.
Right. So mowing, real quick, since we said we'd talk about that, the requirement is to send out bids and basically look at who responds from a bidding perspective. And we did have a few bid options out there that were $300 per mowing or whatever, and they wanted you to sign a contract for a long period of time. And again, this was McCombs handling, reaching out to them. So ultimately, we decided to use the same company that's already doing the townhomes, and they agreed when they're out mowing the townhomes that they can come over and do the areas in front of where everybody drives through that circle and that driving in, to keep that looking good. Now, $100 a week is what that includes. That they're bonded, they're insured,
It doesn't include the majority of the company.
and once a month edging. It seems really high to me.
It is high though. I tell you, you try to get somebody to do small areas here and there.
Yes.
It's not a large thing, they charge you terrible.
So it seems reasonable, like not reasonable.
It's
not
Well, but it seems like a common
typical.
amount.
I think it's high for them already being in the neighborhood. I mean, if they were coming in just to do that, okay, but if they're already at the townhouse to go a half a block to get $100 to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe to mow that seems crazy.
For only that little circle,
No.
Well,
No,
no.
the mailbox.
The around the mailboxes, there's where the sidewalks on either side are, and all the way up to the those 4 townhomes that are there. All of that is what we're talking about.
They go clear to my town home signs.
Yes.
You know where the town home sign is?
Yeah.
Clear back?
yeah.
They do all of that
Right.
on both sides.
On both sides of those townhomes, because on the other side of the townhomes is also commons. And so, again, it's the maintaining of. Now, technically, there's that water drainage ditch or whatever as you're driving in next to those 4 townhomes. There's like a water capture area. That would need to be maintained once it's deeded over. John and I were kind of talking back and forth, and I don't know who turned it into the city, but Lewis had to mow that, and he was out there with his tractor right there. He was out there with his tractor mowing that ditch. But I think the least expensive estimate we got to mow that ditch was $500.
A what, a week or month or what?
Just once.
Once?
Just to do it once.
Every time they come and go, there's 3 detention zones. One on either side of those blue townhomes, and then one down at the far end on the east side.
Yeah, there's 3 total of those. We just have one for sure, is since it's right next to houses, that it might have been somebody over there, but it would be an eyesore, and you know, if something's not being maintained, you write a ticket to the city, and then they post a sign out there that says, take care of this and we're gonna bill you.
I think you'll be shocked at how much, when you put out bids, I think you will be shocked at how high it really is.
Oh, so you said we'd be shocked at how much it was. I agree. I was shocked when we asked for those bids, and like that detention cell was $500 per mowing.
Yeah.
And we just said, well, it's not ours, and Lewis didn't want to deed it over, so let him mow it. Yes.
If we take it over, will the developer continue to pay dues on the vacant lots?
So the way that Combs had stated it was, once there is a door, then you pay dues. So not when
Will
there's.
the developer continue to maintain those lots?
Yes.
Do we know what the status of any of these lots are?
So the 2 next door are just for sale. They're, who knows?
They're sold, nobody can move in there.
Good try, good try.
There's mine. There is one that's technically not owned by the developer that's up on 88.
Yeah.
It has like I think a home realty sign up. And then there was one that sold across the street from me at 8925 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, which was built by Kickback Construction. And then around the corner on 90th, there's a terrible looking truck sitting in the driveway forever. And they've exceeded their 12-month time limit. And one of the things that you grabbed a copy of the covenants, or I'm going to send them out, that it says is you're going to be done building within 12 months. And so John and I had actually, that was another thing, I didn't think about that. That was another thing that we said to McCombs, please get on them about this. They were supposed to be done in 12 months, and in January it'll be 12 months. They finished one house, never finished the other.
Well, I contacted the realty, the
Yeah.
Nebraska realty,
Okay?
and never got a message back. And it went out to the lady that it was mentioned, I think you mentioned that, her name, somebody mentioned her name, contact.
Okay?
And so I contacted her through Nebraska Realty, and it went out, you know how they do, they spread it out to 4 other realtors.
Yeah.
But it went out to 4 other people, and I never got it.
So you reached out and never heard back from
Never
anybody?
received, I'm sorry, or we'll be on it, nothing.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys noticed, I noticed, I don't remember if it was Friday or Thursday, but there was a company truck for cabinetry.
So there was
They're working on it. I think on Zillow it says like spring of
Spring?
2023.
Well,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Well, originally I think it said March 1st.
That might be. Yeah, that might be.
Yeah,
See, we
that's pretty
don't
soon.
have any enforcement provisions yet.
Right. So that let me jump to that.
Why is that?
Because they weren't in the covenants.
So the covenants just say that you can file a lien, but there's nothing about how much or for what.
I noticed that there were no provisions.
There are no
There's
provisions.
Covenants and that's it, no
Right.
provisions.
So I'm going to talk real quick about commons, and then we'll get back to that. The Lewis has never transferred the deed for the commons, and McCombs contacted their attorney and got nothing. Now,
Well,
I'm
as I said,
going on what she said. I find that kind of hard to believe because generally speaking, attorneys have assistants, and I mean, they're busy people, but they don't like to not respond. So I question if that's the case. Or is Lewis not paying them and so they don't want to represent? I don't know. But we need to get that straightened out, and that is at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned, that those commons need to be. We have an association, we're meeting. That's another reason for having everybody come to the annual meetings. We can say we met. But to basically be able to say, look, these commons should be deeded to us. We should they should be part of the Shadow Creek Homeowners Association, not the development, right? So that's one of the things that the commons, I mentioned this earlier, the commons behind here, between the houses and the apartments, is actually deeded to the apartments. I can't, and that was the other part where mowing or doing the snow removal on that retains basically our legal rights to that area. But if it's deeded to the apartments and 20 years from now, the Army Corps of Engineers wants them to clean that all out, because it's deeded to them, I think they're responsible for that. But I don't know that the legal piece of that for certain. But it creates questions where questions shouldn't exist, right? Because it was deeded to the wrong, it shouldn't have been included with the sale of the land for the apartments. But that's where it sits. I just wanted to let everybody know where it's at, because that seemed unusual, right? Our covenants do say, have a little bit extra in there for the commons areas, like the ones on the other side of those apartments, the townhomes over there. There's a few extra things. You can plant a garden if your house abuts to a commons area, but they're really just that they need to be maintained. And we like our neighborhood to look nice, so even though they weren't ours yet, John and I were kind of struggling with how do we keep that maintained. I need to buy a riding lawnmower and just go drive over there and do it. Well, then the problem is the insurance, liability, all of those things. You can't just have one of the neighbor kids go do it. So that was where we got stuck as far as how much it costs in doing those things. Mike, did you have a thought?
I have all kinds of thoughts, but you ain't got time right now.
Okay, all right.
You keep going, and then I'll bring my thoughts up.
Okay, yeah, because we will have, I want to make sure.
Okay, so we're snow blowing. I'm snow blowing everything right now to get to the mailboxes, okay?
You are.
I'm the guy that's been blowing them off.
Thank you very much.
I live over in Geriatricville, and we're gonna fall down on the ice, and it's a mess. And so they clean our area, we pay somebody to clean our area, and then I bought a snow blower so we can take care of that. We also own a lawnmower, so we've been taking care of mostly what's going on down the hill at the small pond at the end of Red Sky. Tom's been cleaning it up with the lawnmower that we own. Okay. And so we're kind of handling that end of it. I don't feel like pushing the lawnmower the rest of the way up here.
No.
But I'm laughing because I'm doing snowblower, so what is the liability? The liability is I'm an idiot. If I fall down,
No, the
I'm going to get with my own insurance company.
Yeah, the liability is somebody from the apartment house slips and
slips and falls, yes.
and they come after you personally because you were the one that snow loaded, it wouldn't be the HOA, it'd probably be you
Yeah.
We
personally.
have, the
That's-
HOA has insurance.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
But still,
But they could go
but
after.
still, they can go after you personally.
Well, no, not really, because it's on the ground, it wasn't because he.
They could.
So we're a little concerned about
Yeah,
liability.
and you should be, yes.
And then the other thing, and I was talking to Theron because, from an insurance perspective, you know, and real estate, he's more knowledgeable than I'm going to be. And one of the things that he shared with me was that when you look at homeowners insurance for an association, one of the things that's frequently a line item in that insurance is indemnification of the board members. Because if you don't have that, and somebody slips and falls,
Yep.
now they can sue the homeowner
And the
board
board
members
Yep, and they're
individually.
done that.
So, that's not good.
But even our commons areas, that's never even been seeded yet. So we're paying $100 a week to have
Weeds.
weeds mowed. So we haven't even seeded it to make it decent.
Right. So, bottom line is, for 2023, it would be nice. What is the money going towards? Probably lawn and making things look nice when people are coming in. Future would be to start actually thinking about, and, you know, as well as maintenance and snow removal and that kind of stuff. We'd love to. There's actually an easement up by the corner there of 90th and O for a Shadow Creek sign. So as an example, that would be something that, if we had extra money in the coffers, we could start thinking about something like that. It even has an easement for power, so you could have a lighted sign if you wanted. I don't know that we have to, but that's an option. So at any rate, we can't take care of the basics right now without making a pretty drastic change to ownership or to management company because it's just not working.
Your answer is March 15th, that was when that house is supposed to be done.
Okay.
She just texted me back on it.
Okay. March 15th, thank you.
That one that's next.
The one that's next door to yours down on 90th should be done March 15th. Thank you for getting there.
They weren't keeping up with that at all.
No, they haven't been, and in fact, when John and I had a conversation with Mary McCombs about both of those, and said they're both kickback construction, they're building them at the same time. Lewis had some kind of a deal with them, Rob Mountain sold the land, or was going to get his money when they sold the property. Anyway, they finished one house and moved the truck from in front of my house down around the corner, I'm sorry, and into the driveway. I want to say that my wife and I might have contributed to them moving it off of the street because they were ticketed a few times for not moving in 24 hours.
I called non-emergency too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Across from our house too. I'm like,
So-
hey, this car's gotta move.
Right, so I don't think there's anything wrong when cars are parked on the street and stay there for a week, right? Over 24 hours is the law. If we don't know whose it is, and we can't just go have a conversation with them about moving it, then I don't think there's any issue with that. It worked. Unfortunately, they moved it up onto a driveway and then they kept it there, so that's not good. But you said the 15th of next month?
Like she said.
We're within 20 days. I will say that if that doesn't happen, we'll figure out how which I'll get to here, which is Shadow Creek covenants and adjustments. We need one more member for the board. And according to the bylaws, I can just assign that to somebody and they have to. You can.
I wasn't familiar with that part.
We really, people, we really do need somebody say, I motion for this, and John could say, I second it, but then if there was a dissent for some reason, there's no third part, there's no third person.
How many are on the board now?
2.
So it's John, you're
John
on the board?
and me.
And
So a board,
which
so
were
a
you?
board is.
I'm Seth Cruz, I'm sorry. I should
Oh,
have
no, that's
introduced
fine, I
myself.
come in late.
Minimum.
So you're the vice president?
President.
You're the president, what's John?
Well, so John came on as the secretary treasurer.
Oh, okay.
And then every 3 years, the president becomes the secretary becomes the vice becomes president.
Oh, so you need a vice president, is what
You
you're
need a
saying?
vice president.
I should probably clarify.
You should
because
clarify, yes. I kind of asked him if he would help.
Al Wellman
Yeah.
I thought,
actually
yeah.
was elected.
He was elected, and we had one other person from the townhomes elected, and for different reasons, they,
Oh,
Al
yeah.
really was not in a position to do it. He
Right.
didn't really want to do it, and so I volunteered if he was okay to take his position.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, he bowed out, I remember that, yeah.
so,
Okay.
so yeah, I apologize, I'm Seth Cruz and
Oh, I
president
come
of
in
our
late, so
homeowners.
I'm
No,
sorry.
thank you for asking. So,
Well, and really, without provisions, you have nothing.
There you go.
Because provisions outlines all of this.
create addendum policies for enforcement of bylaws.
Well,
That is
yeah, it outlines the board of directors and how their terms and all of that.
So
Yeah.
Mike is here from the president of the townhomes, that's why I keep pointing at him. And he went through a little bit of trying to get enforcement provisions into the townhome covenants. And we,
just for FYI, that's a sub-association.
Sub-association. right. But we don't want to do something different. We want to adopt the same types of things. And we struggled under McCombs, I sound like a broken record here, to get anything done. So the hope is, in 2023, we can create an addendum policy for the enforcement of our existing bylaws. And then any of the bylaws, as an example, and I'll be talking about this here in just a minute, but the covenants for the new homes going in, called Hidden Hills, it looks like they took our covenants and pretty much copied them, or they're on a law template somewhere. But they did modify them slightly. So as an example, they allow solar panels as long as they're not on the front of your house, or if they are they can't be on a structure in your backyard.
They also allow vinyl on the front.
There's other things, yes. The homes in this neighborhood don't allow for any solar, and the ones over in the townhomes do.
That's correct.
So there's different rules all around us, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to be different. But maybe we want solar tiles or solar shingles and those, whatever. I just as an example, there may be some opportunity for us to normalize some of these things over the course of this next fiscal year. So those were the covenants adjustments that we need a board member. We'd like to create enforcement bylaws and policies, and then if we need to adjust any of them, we can. One of the things that I noticed, I'll just hop right in here, the covenants with Hidden Hills. Set that over there, set it over here. And I'll here, pass this right. I put a link to their covenants in this slide deck that I'll post. But one of the things was that they're requiring any exposed foundation to be painted. We don't require payment. I asked in the Facebook group last year what people's thoughts were on painting the foundations, and some people had a painted foundation, some people don't. It depended on your builder for this area. They have a very specific thing about building a shed or where chain link fence is allowed over there. And we have a less specific area for, I think they call them accessory buildings. Now, when Karen, when you built your home, it was understood that you couldn't have a shed at all.
Correct.
And in my rereading of the covenants, there's an accessory building clause, which seems like it might allow it as long as it matches the rest of the house. So these are things that are opportunities for us to adjust in our bylaws so that everything feels clear. Yes, thank you.
That's the joy of building first. You do it so there's no shed, and do the hollow core room, and
then
now
they
the sheds.
Yes, and so we don't want everybody to feel frustrated with their neighbor, right? I mean, but if there's no enforcement and the rules aren't clear, what do you do? So that's what I wanted to share with you. No, I handed it out earlier. There's a plat map. Yeah, it's been going around. This is all around the front. This is basically a list of the lots that are for sale over there and what they're going for. And then my understanding is there are sections on there that are labeled outlot. Those are their commons areas. They said their commons areas are the outlots and the sidewalks. The area that would have been an outlot or would have been a commons area is where if you take 90th and it curves around and then it dumps out onto Touchdown Drive, there's an area they're not going to build on that's right up next to the Mopac Trail. They've turned that over or are going to turn that over to the city of Layton to be parked.
It's actually more like a playground.
So I mean, that might be great if they put playground equipment in and mow it and take care of it. We'll see.
So I have a question.
Yes.
When you go down 90th,
Yes.
just before you get to the new section, if you take a left, there's this what looks like a dirt road, or
Okay.
looks like a dam.
So the question was, if you go down 90th, and right before you get to the new section, there's this area going off to the left. What is that? That's going to be a sidewalk or trail, not a road. And behind all of the trees, there's going to be a whole nother section built that's not on the plat map today of homes. And they're preparing all of that for next year, I believe.
Yeah, they're high dollar lots.
High dollar lots, and they'll be next year. Their challenge had been that without it connecting, which it doesn't obviously do yet, if they didn't connect it properly, and the fire department had to go all the way up and around to what is the Hillcrest. If they had to go all the way up and around through Hillcrest to get to that, it would be longer than the 3 or 5 minute by law requirement for ambulance and fire truck. And so until they connect everything, they can't build them. Will we ever have an outlet to 84?
No. There will be one to the south, actually two.
Right, the short answer is no, at least not for the next 20 years. Because until what was the state farm and all that area gets redeveloped, the road that connects to 84th is technically private. And so the city said when they redevelop that, then we'll make them give us that movement.
So Cherry would won't go through.
But if you go.
Correct.
If you go down and into the other new development
Yep.
that's south of us, they do have an outlet to 84.
That's what we're talking about. That will not be open. That is going to be,
No, there is one that's open on that one to get to.
I'm sorry, over on White Horse.
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
We will have one that goes from 88th and way it winds around through, they'll connect to White Horse. And then
Yes.
there'll also be the one that connects to Hillcrest.
Right, so we eventually will have maybe later this year, late this year or next year for certain, a connection between White Horse and Hillcrest. There's supposed to be two. It may end up being one, we'll see.
I would think the Hillcrest one will come along before the other one's hit. The other one actually goes under the bike path or
Well, through it.
through. Yeah.
It goes right through it.
And
I
the
don't know what
north,
they're
the
gonna
north
do.
part of White Horse isn't developed, they're not finished with that.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the next step.
Correct. So anyway, I just wanted to make people aware, and I made the covenants for Inn Hills available as well because, you know, whether it was the painting the foundation or vinyl siding on the front face of the house, a minimum of 2 stall garage, which I noticed somebody did a 2 plus kind of an extended. It doesn't have a door, right? It's the only one that was like that. And then there's my personal pet peeve, a big telephone pole looking thing with a bunch of electrical coming out of the ground. That one annoys the crap out of me. But I didn't think they were supposed to have any, maybe it's temporary, but it concerned me when I looked around at any other neighborhood, nobody's got that. So I don't know why they decided to put that there.
I'm thinking it's 10.
I hope you're right.
Because they've already run that line back through, and they haven't made a connection yet to come back by that sidewalk. And so when they hook that sidewalk up and connect over across the street on 84th,
Okay.
then that place will be hot.
Okay.
And right now, I think what they're doing is they're stealing power, probably either from White Horse area
Yep.
or maybe off of 84th Street, just to get some power.
So
in there.
hopefully it's temporary.
It
and
looks
then-
temporary too. Look at it, it ain't tall enough to be anything. It's just a weird.
It bugged the crap out of me when we drive by.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, we like
Yeah.
to drive through the neighborhood. Anyway, so I saw that and it really irritated me.
It probably turns the street lights on or something.
Probably. So, I apologize, this has gone probably longer than everybody scheduled for, but I wanted to make sure if there were any questions. We've kind of answered some of them, but I wanted to offer an opportunity for Q&A here. Sure.
How do we get rid of McCombs?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Is that a board action or a membership action or?
so
Board can do it,
the board can do it.
but we can't do it until we have something else planned.
But I wanted, with who's here, and then I was gonna post the question, hopefully if we get everybody on Facebook to kind of post a recorded, so we've got it recorded. Is everybody in favor of moving away from McCombs?
Yes.
Everybody is? Okay.
What is
I think
our-
that's unanimous.
What is our agreement with them? How much notice do we have to give them?
I'd
Is
like
this a
to-
year-on-year agreement or?
I would like for us to be done within the next 45 days.
Are we allowed to do that?
Who initially,
I don't know that we've signed contracts stating
who
a specific
initially
date.
contracted with them?
It'd be the builder.
The builder.
The developer?
And
So
the
doesn't
amount.
the developer have to turn the HOA over to the homeowners? Isn't that a process?
Already
you
has
go-
been.
They
because
did
of
have,
the-
when we voted for the board.
Okay, all
So
right,
when we formed the HOA, that's when that happened.
okay.
When we voted for the board, technically they turned it over, but McCombs didn't readjust their management fee to the appropriate amount, things like that, and initially they were pretty good. I would say when we were holding meetings and they were taking notes and filing the taxes, doing all the things. It seemed like it was,
Well, it was better than, it deteriorated.
it really drastically deteriorated.
How do they file their taxes? Do we know?
I don't know the answer.
Well, we've got the chart.
Yeah, on the income statement, the taxes did show, that's
So-
a good point.
The board.
That doesn't mean they were filed
Twice a year.
That doesn't mean they were filed though, just because they charged us for it.
The
So I need to ask.
HOA, so as a board, down to the board, you do have the legal authority to get rid of it.
Yes.
So, do you also need permission for approval to add members to the board?
I think for the next, was it year, 2 years? I think it's 2 years. We've been through this for a year. It's a 3-year term. So during that time, if somebody volunteers, no. But if somebody steps down or wants to be voted in,
Right, but we're missing a person.
we aren't.
Okay, so we do need one other person.
Right.
Okay.
We do need one other person on the board. We don't have a vice president today, so that would be something that, yes.
Do you think McCombs want to get rid of us as much as we want to get rid of them?
It's easy money.
I think they would love for McCombs would probably love for us to stay because it's easy money.
What's the possibility of getting a meeting with one of them? Have you tried? Or they won't?
So I tried from November until I finally said screw it with John here. We just held our own because we kept asking them to schedule and coordinate the annual meeting, send out the letter about the dues, do different things, and it just wasn't happening.
The staff person that they had, do you remember her name?
McKaylee Gay.
She was pretty good, and she
Yeah, and
kept
she's-
on top of things pretty
She's
well.
not with them anymore?
She's not with them anymore.
Well, she's doing something different, and they trained 2 new people, and
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I don't think those, I've heard from one of them one time.
Right.
I've sent emails, I don't get replies, I make phone calls.
See, that's
I
what's so
don't
sad about the
reply.
whole thing.
It is frustrating.
Yes.
We just don't hear from them.
I was on a couple of those Zoom calls for the
Yep.
meetings, and all we heard out of her was, I was gonna look into that.
Yes.
I don't have that here. I'll
Right.
check on that and get back to you.
Right.
Never heard a thing.
Right. That was the problem. Then she would follow up with an email to me and John, maybe, if I asked 2 or 3 more times. It was not consistent, and especially on things where we needed them to follow up on, they just weren't doing it. And I just felt like if I'm,
We're paying them, we shouldn't have to chase her.
thank you.
Right.
I just figure if I'm asking her, I could just ask the person who I need to ask.
We already decided we're going to get rid of it, right?
We have.
So we just need to move on.
We just need to move on.
So to take the next step, for you guys to go from what all do you need outside, have to line up the insurance?
Insurance.
Get the entity switch over to you guys running
We
in?
need a nonprofit corporation, basically LLC established.
Trudy, didn't you look that up once? We have that, don't we? Doesn't Honeycombs have us, it's just with them?
They might. And so what I'm hoping I will get is McCombs, this can't be the first time McCombs ever had somebody excited on their call. That they would provide us with the tax ID, the LLC if it exists, which it should, and the insurance information as far as who they were wanting. I would expect at a minimum, along with a check for whatever's in the bank account, that all of those things should come to us.
Here's the thing, Mike can tell us exactly what we need. What do you guys do? Do you have someone that takes care of it?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that's what
Someone
we-
collects the money and keeps track of who's paid, who hasn't, and then usually just makes some phone calls. Most of us are really pretty good about paying. There's 1 or 2, but we've not had any delinquent when it comes to the whole thing. Then it's good to have, you probably already have a lawyer, you just don't know it, because they set these rules up. There's probably already a corporation there.
Okay.
Okay? Because we're a corporation in the town hall.
Sure.
And it's a nonprofit. You're a nonprofit.
that's all right.
You just have
Yeah,
to
we
find
know
those
that.
numbers. So, and then you've got to have, I gave you information
Yep.
that you can steal,
Okay,
and it will
For
give you-
enforcement?
It is policies. We have a meeting next month, and we will vote on some of these, but it's on policies on daycares and preschools, policies on nuisances like trash, which would affect what they're doing across the street with the crap laying down here in the pile. And then there are policies on general maintenance.
Yeah.
Keeping up your building, making sure that you don't run a wreck, and policies on recreational vehicles.
okay,
Okay, and they don't go against anything that's in the bylaws. And then policies on pets,
okay.
because we're really not interested in having people crap all over it. Nobody ticking it up.
Meeting might be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's specific,
Jerry,
because they all walk through
Yeah.
here, we know it happens.
Yeah.
Jerry,
I was just gonna tell you, the enabling documents are on file with the Secretary of State's office. You can go online, you just put the name of the association in there,
Okay.
and it's all on file. It's all online. So you can easily, you don't have to go through. You just,
They're all at the Secretary of State online.
it's right on the website. And then you
Website.
just, for a corporation, you say what the name of the corporation is,
Okay.
the LLC or whatever, and you can click it on there, and you'll
Okay.
get the documents. You might have to pay $1 or $2, but that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, that's all I had.
I have a few questions if you don't mind. Go ahead.
We haven't received anything what our HOA fee is. We paid, when we moved into the house, when we closed on our house, we paid it was $100 then. So I take it now, it's $150.
150.
But I think we're probably delinquent, so I need to.
I'm
figure out-
sure you're not the only one, I'm sure, because Mandy asked me, should we pay it? And I said, well, yes, but let's hold off for a year.
I'm waiting till we switch.
Exactly.
We got an email the day before.
Yeah, so, that was one of the challenges, is people aren't getting the notifications, it's not consistent, yes.
We got the notice on the 31st too, and my husband called and said we were never notified. They said, oh yeah, we sent an email.
Send an email.
Went back through, didn't have it, and he got on and about, you're supposed to have an annual meeting back in September.
Right.
We haven't had it yet. And then what happens to the dues that we did pay?
So,
Yeah.
there,
It should
I
be
don't,
in an account somewhere.
there it is, they hold an account. When we move everything in, my expectation is they would give us everything we need, including a check, that we would open an account with Westgate Bank and put the deposit in, and it would be under the association, and the board members would have signatory rights.
But it will transfer.
Yes, I fully expect all of the funds, and hopefully it's not a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
But
I'm not
I don't
worried
expect
about
that to be the issue. I expect they'll just write a check because they wouldn't be in business if they were running something. So I expect that would be fine.
And they haven't updated the officers either, because Trudy just pulled it up and it still shows Lewis as 2 or 3 of the main board members, and so they haven't even.
So they've never done their job.
It is.
Miss Darren had called me one day at work, and so I pulled it up on Secretary of State.
Yeah,
and
it's all there.
She was with Lewis, and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll fix that.
Yeah.
But thank you. I'm probably going to have to draw on different people's expertise because I don't mind representing us. I am not an expert on these things, so if somebody knows a lot more about law or taxes or insurance or whatever, I would love it if you raised your hand. I'm not going to make a bunch of work for you, but I do need some help probably in making sure that we do this right.
Well, just thank you for getting the ball rolling here. We all appreciate it. Something's got to get done.
Any issues with McCombs managing Hidden Mills?
Right, okay, so Hidden Hills is managed by McCombs.
Oh,
No
right.
issue there right now. That's for them to figure out
Yeah.
and decide.
And that wouldn't affect us,
That won't
us
affect
leaving
us.
them and everything?
That's a separate HOA. They left you, they had McCombs, and they were sub-ours or whatever, and they left, so, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so online it shows bylaws. Are there bylaws? Or are there just covenants?
Just cut.
There, I've not seen, that's a great point. I said bylaws on.
I just making sure.
It's only
I
covenants.
wanted to make sure I read them. If there
No, no, you're right. They're
Okay.
only covenants today.
So right now it shows that you have $2,035.46 for the checking account. It was the last tally on September 31st. Is that maybe still good, or is that probably
September, that's way off.
they're still greasing out of it?
Well, they're still
Right.
taking.
They're taking so much ahead.
We
so much
had-
more.
So they were making sure to take their money at the beginning of every month
Okay.
for what they owed, so that would be a
They're
problem.
not even good at that.
Okay.
Because,
They would do it every other month.
yeah, they would
Or
miss a
every
couple
3
months
months.
and then they'd take, for 3 months on 1 month. At the end of May, we had a net income of $5,087.91. And so, but
Yeah, good.
it's almost impossible to schedule a meeting, or has
Has been.
been, with them to get any information. on what-
So, according to the covenants, those fourplexes sitting down here
Are part of
in
this.
the covenants.
They're
but
part
not-
of the-
Not in the town
not
home,
part of
but
the
they are in
townhouse.
the HOA.
Correct, they're supposed to do that.
Are they
whole thing.
kicking in? We don't even know if they've been billed, have we?
I don't know that they've been
Okay.
billed, but they're supposed to be.
Okay.
Now, they had to, as an example, the wood, instead of vinyl siding, they had to change things in order, when they were building them, we caught them on that.
Yeah.
Somebody raised that point to me and John, and we made a mistake about it, but anyway, they changed it.
So I too got a bill, I too got a reminder on the 31st saying that tomorrow you owe me money. So I wrote a check on the 31st and stuck it in the mailbox. I have a $1.40 fee that I now owe them because I was late. Okay?
That's cheaper than the fee they charge for the credit card.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
want to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I would suggest all of you do this. I'm going to take $1.40 coins down to their damn office so that they have to count that money, give me a receipt, show me that I paid it, and then they have to go to the bank with the coins. So I'm going to make it difficult, and then I'm sending them a second letter because I already sent them a letter with it saying, you never sent me an invoice, and nor do I know of anybody in the townhomes that got an invoice. They just got a reminder.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not right. Okay?
It's not right.
That's what they get paid to do, so they
Exactly.
have breached, if we had a contract, they breached it, okay? But,
On several.
yeah, on lots of things, but
Well, I
I'm just
don't think
telling you,
they're gonna-
that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow, and anybody else that, you might wanna go check your account, because it's online, you can go look it up at McCombs, and you may have been given a way to get in there, and you look at it, and I'll guarantee you, if you didn't pay it on time, there's $1.40 in there for
Now,
interest.
technically, when you take over, I'm guessing those will transfer to
So,
you
normally-
if you want to collect.
We will watch it.
You're gonna you're on the same exact wavelength that I am. If somebody didn't get the notice and got a late fee and so forth, we want to make it right. I'm sorry that you did that. I mean, that was the right thing to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but
Why did
you
you
shouldn't
say
have, but you shouldn't have had to.
I paid ours online and paid the fee to
Yeah.
pay electronically.
So,
Even if you mail it in through snail mail, if it's postmarked
They
on
should have
like.
honored that.
they should honor that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they have to legally. The day you drop it in the mailbox, you're satisfied.
Yeah. So, are we good?
I think you've answered everything
Okay.
else I need.
Did anybody
Anything I
got any-
grabbed about's fine now.
When the
Yes.
townhomes, when you guys left McCombs,
We never
Yeah.
really even,
you
we
never
never gave
were
a
with
choice.
them. Oh, but did they turn the money? They didn't have any money. Or
They had no
they-
money.
Okay.
You
Right.
have
It's
to
all
understand, okay, so the developer of the entire area sold the townhome lots to a builder. So that builder became the developer down there. That's how the covenant's written. And so the builder was acting as the president and his wife and this kid.
Yeah.
And they were running the association down the hill and collecting stuff and keeping track. So then they turned it over to us when it got to be an 80% vote, because then they lose the vote of the
Yeah.
entire neighborhood.
So,
I would also, last thing, I
Yes.
would love to see us put up a barricade over here
Right.
on 90th,
uh-huh,
so that they have to open up
the
some
trucks.
other road into there. Because this, we haven't seen it yet, but there's only, 9 houses back there.
I was
There are-
surprised how
There are
many
like
were
30
already
or
up.
40 lots sold.
Well,
So
that's why I was
it's
passing
gonna
that
just get to
around.
humping, and it's all gonna come through
Yeah.
here, and they're gonna run over our nice little roundabout out here all day.
And break it more than they
All
already
day
have.
long.
They've been doing that already.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be really fun to.
no, it's unfortunately.
Block party.
I know we can't, yes, we probably could keep filing to have the road closed for block parties. I want to thank everybody for coming. If there is still pizza, feel free. But I'd like to have something in June, not an annual meeting, but just have something in the first 2 weeks of June where we could hopefully give an update on everything that we talked about tonight.
So watch your emails.
Potluck, yeah.
And
Worst case, 4th of July, right? I mean,
we have to get a couple of these things done. I
Yes.
mean, we need to get the enforcement provisions adopted, and so we may do that at the next meeting. We just need to have enough people attend so that we can do this. And we may have to resort to doing a vote by mail
yes.
to adopt those. If we have to, we'll do that. Then at least we have that in place. We have enforcement provisions. Then, we can move on from there. But as far as the McCombs thing, we have to be able to have something in place to replace what McCombs.
We'll set everything
supposed
up
to
and
be.
then ask McCombs to give us everything so that we can transfer it over. That's the intention. It makes the most sense to me, and I see people nodding yes. So good, I'm glad I'm not thinking outside the box too much. So I appreciate everybody's time, and certainly if you think of a question when you leave here tonight, if you have the Facebook thing, that's a great way to get a hold of me. I should have put my phone number and information on there, and I didn't, but I'll make sure that gets out there. Josh has been recording the meeting tonight. We have a fancy microphone.